Welcome to the latest edition of Actuary Voices, the podcast from the American Academy of Actuaries. I'm your host, David Nolan, Senior Director of Marketing and Communications at the Academy. In this edition, I'll be speaking with Sam Tashima, who's a member of the Academy's Committee on Cyber Risk and will be a recipient of our Rising Actuary Award at the Academy's annual meeting Envision Tomorrow, which will be held November 13th and 14th in Washington, D.C. Sam, congratulations and welcome to Actuary Voices.
It's a pleasure to be here, David.
Great. Well, look, what we usually start is if you could tell me a little bit about yourself and where you're from and maybe why you became an actuary or how you became an actuary.
Yeah, sounds great. So I'll start with my current role. Currently, I am the head of and cyber and E&O risk consulting and analytics team in North America. Predominantly what that entails is I lead our cyber risk consulting team, and we help organizations, predominantly Fortune 500, Fortune 100 enterprises, in terms of computing and understanding the financial ramifications associated with their cyber, E&O, technology, professional indemnity related risks.
And can you just define E&O for the uninitiated?
Sure. They're errors and omissions coverage to the extent of whether they are a professional services firm providing consultancy or advisory services to other organizations, or even to the extent of if we think of major technology organizations such as whether they are software or broader technology aspects, the Amazons, Googles, Microsofts of the world, they're providing numerous different services to organizations. And inherent in that risk is the services that they provide. What are they, if their services don't perform or there are errors or issues or data breaches therein, it comes back to them as being an error in their underlying service.
Great, thank you.
And as part of that, kind of the key component that we're performing from a consultancy basis, both pricing and reserving, but really helping them to quantify and understand their insurance program design work such that they can optimize the risk taking, whether that's within a captive or on the corporate balance sheet, and then simply broader research and development into claim trends. So that's really where I stand in terms of the current role and what I'm currently performing as an actuary.
Right. And obviously you've got a depth of knowledge of cybersecurity trends and risks and opportunities and so on. But could you go back a bit before that and how you became an actuary? Where are you from and so on?
So I grew up in a small town in southeastern Minnesota, rural community, small town of 2,000. My father was a math teacher at the local high school, and luckily, it was a unique experience where it's one of those, say, small towns where you gain a diverse background simply doing everything because your class was only 60 kids and you basically had to do everything in order to fill the school musicals and the high school sports teams and the jazz bands. And I was very fortunate to have one of my favorite math teacher there, in terms of, as I was going through, had a love of math and strategy games in addition to the sports and musicals that I was in. And he really implored me to explore and look into the actuarial science role as I was going to university. And from there, I attended the University of Minnesota in the Minneapolis metro, really started exploring more of the actuarial courses, ended up being an actuary and a math major. But within my network, I had both a classmate from high school whose father was an actuary. I also had a very close family friend who was an actuary and was able to do some informational interviews while I was performing my undergrad, and really that helped to accelerate my exploration into the actuarial profession.
Wow, that's great. It sounds like you got off right from the get-go on the actuarial profession trend or path.
Right.
Yeah, because...
And I Go ahead.
I was just going to say, because some of the people we've had on have had very different backgrounds and sort of almost fell into being an actuary rather than sort of sought it out.
Exactly. I was just going to say that to the extent whether I'm dealing with clients or others within the AN network, it's like, oh man, you actually went to school for the insurance profession and you stayed in the insurance profession. So it's been very fortunate that everything aligned from that perspective.
Yeah. And was there any particular reason you moved into the cyber field?
Yeah, I'd say over time, as I started my actuarial career, was very much in the core property casualty, workers' compensation, auto liability work, again, pricing and reserving. And as, again, a bit of a fortunate confluence of events, I ended up going back to do my MBA at the Carlson School of Management at the University of Minnesota. And as I was doing that, we really focused on finance, but there got to be a point, say, going on 7-8 years ago, where we could just tell that there was an increased need around the cyber insurance. It was growing, and I shifted my focus from that pure finance group to the technology components, and made some strategic acquisitions. And really, one of the things that I love about being an actuary and that I find fulfilling around it is the ability to solve new and novel and emerging issues. I think that's one of the neatest components around the actuarial profession as a whole, and especially within the P&C area. And as part of that, cyber, technology errors and omission, cryptocurrency, crime, IP patent infringement were all part of an area that I started getting heavily involved in that 2015, 2016 time period.
I see, yeah. Interesting you mentioned cryptocurrency. I'm going to date this podcast, but obviously the Sam Bankman-Fried trial is going on as we're speaking, which is shining a maybe not so welcome light on some aspects of that industry. But your main point seems to be that problem solving is the key part of what you find fulfilling about the profession, right?
Really, within everything that we do, whether it was the exams or the case studies as part of my MBA courses, and now it's simply the new and novel issues that our clients bring to me and the team. That's extremely fulfilling. Even from the cyberspace, if we go back, shifting back 8, 9, 10 years ago, there wasn't a blueprint around, oh, how do we best quantify and understand the risk around the cyber insurance landscape. Even I'm sure there are some in the broader industry that would say, hey, we still don't have the best blueprint for it. But a unique aspect that I view as we as actuaries is we're leveraging the tools in our toolkit, tools and skills learned from exams, continuing education, on-the-job learning, to figure out, well, how can we apply those skill sets to these new and novel and emerging areas to help solve, or at least put some framework and parameters around issues that may be impacting public policy, the decisions of our clients. And Fortune 1000 companies, they're continuing to innovate and evolve with their business models. They face new and emerging risks around cyber, climate change, regulatory changes. And as part of that, the ability to say, bring together, and as I say, this is an issue we're going through, help us think through how we can approach it. That's extremely fulfilling in my line of work.
Sure. And obviously you were breaking new ground. You continue to be breaking new ground. But looking back on the early parts of your career, did you have any mentors that you particularly, I know when you were in high school, you certainly did, but when you started your career, were there mentors who sort of helped steer you and help you?
Absolutely. And I'd say that I've been very fortunate in terms of mentoring and mentorship to have the ability that I've had individuals both within my direct line of business, but then also others, especially within with an Aon that may be brokers or account executives or catastrophe modelers. I'd say a unique aspect of having those differing coaches and mentors is they've been able to provide me insight to not just in the cyberspace, but how our clients are thinking about issues and the broader industry around, say, trends that are going on, and how to think about hard market cycles, since a lot of what we see is cyclical. They've occurred before, but how do we think about those in terms of approaching an issue that the cyber market or the D&O market may not have seen recently, but that may be hitting, say, the property market right now, and trying to look at everything more holistically from that insurance landscape.
Sure, that sounds great. Okay. I'd like to move on now to your role volunteering at the Academy, because you've brought your great experience to help the Academy work out some of the issues around cybersecurity. And as we're speaking in the middle of Cybersecurity Month, I thought this would be topical. So yes. Tell us a little bit about what you're doing with other Academy volunteers.
My main role within the Academy is I've been participating as what was the Cyber Risk Task Force. Now it's a full cyber committee. And within that committee, there are a few main areas in which we perform volunteering. Probably the most notable that we've had is the Cyber Risk Toolkit. It was launched in August of 2021. We're always adding to it. That's a unique aspect, is it's almost a living document. Now, unfortunately, within the cyberspace, something that may have been very relevant 24 or 36 months ago then starts to get outdated. So we're always in a constant addition space. And most recently, a paper that I helped author was around digital assets and cryptocurrency and some of the theft considerations in there. We'll be adding in a couple of additional papers on personal cyber insurance, as well as vendor catastrophe risk models. And the toolkit is a very unique aspect in the sense that the intended audience, it's a key area is for those practicing actuaries, but it's not only practicing actuaries. As we've written it and thought about the scope, we do want it to be potential for the general insurance public, or the general public that's interested in these areas, as well as different policymakers. And as I hit on policy within that, over time, various letters come out in terms of requests for comment, whether it's from the Federal Insurance Office, Government Accountability Office, or Department of Treasury, especially with related to thinking about TRIA or cyber insurance as a whole, data aspects. And the Cyber Committee has been very much on the forefront of responding to those letters and providing commentary to specific letters, as well as our general Capitol Hill visits.
Sure. And TRIA is a terrorism risk.
TRIA then standing for the Terrorism Risk Insurance Act of 2002.
Gotcha. Right. Okay, good. Obviously, that is well known to many, or most, if not all, P&C actuaries, but there may be others who are not aware of it. And so this project is directed mainly at actuaries, but it's also written so that interested members of the public can also access it. Is that right?
Correct.
And has there been much work getting it out to the general public? Or is most of the work at the moment getting in front of the faces of policymakers?
I would say that the key areas where we've seen it is getting it in front of the individuals of the broader practicing actuarial community, and then in addition to that, the policymakers, especially with regard to the certain Capitol Hill visits that we've had and meetings with the various entities, and sharing here, as you're looking into broader insurance aspects around this, here's a wealth of knowledge and aspects that we put together around the cyber insurance space.
Sure. Thank you for listening to Actuary Voices, a podcast from the American Academy of Actuaries. Please rate and subscribe to this podcast on your preferred podcast listening platform. You can learn more about the Academy at actuary.org, including about our annual meeting, Envision Tomorrow, which takes place in Washington, D.C. on November 13th and 14th. And now, back to my conversation with Sam Tashima. I think it'd be great if you could say a few words about those Hill visits, because they are something that the Academy does, I think, pretty much every year.
Correct.
So I was wondering if you could say a few words about those.
Within those, especially coming from the Cyber Risk Committee team and the Hill visits in general, whether it's with the Government Accountability Office or the Department of Treasury and the Federal Insurance Office, what we'll do is, and in conjunction with Rich Gibson and Rob Fisher, help set up specific meetings with those given entities, and they'll have a couple of members. And in addition to those main governmental entities, there are certain subcommittees within the House that may take meetings as well. And they'll oftentimes come forward with differing topics that they're wanting to learn about, or areas. Climate has been a key item, and even as we go further in thinking about the insurance space, equity and inclusion, and even the implications of artificial intelligence into some of the decision making, in my mind, will just continue to grow from a public policy aspect. And it's a great opportunity for the Academy to be able to liaison with those public policy makers, but then also being able to answer questions, but provide value to the extent of, here's what we're doing on a regular basis around the different task force and committees that we have, but then looking for input in terms of where there are areas that we've done research into that you would like us to expand on further, or areas that we haven't necessarily touched, but is a key piece that you're interested in from a public policy aspect that we can potentially help to accelerate.
Sure, it's definitely a two-way street, so that, yes, you are providing information, but you're also learning where there may be gaps, and I'm sure that makes it even more valuable. Right. And just for our listeners, Rich Gibson is our senior P&C fellow on staff here, and Rob Fisher is our senior analyst in the casualty area. And they're the point people for a lot of the contacts with the Hill and so on. So I believe you were involved in a webinar a couple of days ago around Cybersecurity Month. Is that right?
I was. It was, and for the different Academy members, you'll be able to watch the replay of that, but was on a core webinar there to highlight Cybersecurity Month. And really the key piece that we hit on was touching on, we do all this work, we put together the different aspects that flow into the toolkit. There are going to be 2 new papers, components that are added in the very near future around both the vendor model comparisons as well as personalized cyber risk. So we were able to touch on both of those, as well as my role in terms of writing the digital asset paper, expanding, which is the most recent one that was added to the toolkit, expanding on that. And the other piece I would say more broadly in terms of, in addition to the committee's work, when we're thinking about October and cybersecurity awareness, is some of the research that the director of research, Steve Jackson, has been doing around cyber risk. He most recently presented at an international workshop around the Center of Research in Economic Finance and Actuarial Sciences, which is a mouthful. It goes by a career that was in Paris, France, and he's been continuing to do broader research in conjunction and in addition to the work from the Cyber Risk Committee.
The hardship of that trip was no doubt alleviated by the fact it was in Paris, I'm sure. Though, to be fair to Steve, I know that he was in Paris pursuing an Academy research project at the same time.
Exactly.
I guess I partly buried the lead. You have won a Rising Actuary award from the Academy this year. First of all, congratulations. And
Thank you.
You'll be receiving that award at our annual meeting on November 13th here in Washington, D.C. So I'm very much looking forward to meeting you in person then. So do you want to tell us a little bit about the work that you did that led to that award, or was it what you've been discussing already?
A lot of it, has been, in my mind, a continuation of the work that we've been discussing here, both within the cyber risk committee, and then in addition to that, the work from a career standpoint around the growth of cyber insurance continues to skyrocket accordingly. But from a broader market conditions, we're still continuing to gather, understand what is the best level of information, how are we driving that to our clients, and a key critical portion of the work that I do on a day in, day out basis is numerous entities. Everyone is going to say that they have data and items around cyber and looking at the most recent trends, but how do we actually take that data and turn it into information that, whether it's public policy holders, clients, the actuarial profession can leverage? And that's a critical aspect around how I think about some of the roles in these emerging areas. Is it's not just that we have the data, but how do we take that data that can be in a consumable format for the different stakeholders that we're dealing with on a regular basis?
Sure. Well, congratulations again. That's
yes, thank you.
That's very well deserved. I'm sometimes shocked that you have time for a day job, given what you've been doing around the cyber work for the Academy. But can you tell me how you got involved in volunteering?
Really, as part of the volunteering portion, it's always been important to me, if we, not just within the Academy's volunteering, but taking a step back to more broadly, I find that it's important to be one, both humble from what we've had, but also cognizant of the people who have helped me in terms of my career. I mentioned whether it's those math teachers or the individuals who are within my network who I was able to have informational interviews, and just how they helped progress my interest within the career, and as working the different coaches and mentors that I've had. So within that, two main aspects that are critical to me is, one, giving back, but then two, always learning, always proving and growing, and giving back to the community. I still, even though for a bit I led our Michigan actuarial team, I'm now relocated back with my family to the Minneapolis Metro, but I still perform some advisory work for Michigan State University. And when it comes to serving, say, the public actuarial profession, I've found it very grateful and fulfilling to be able to continue to volunteer with the Academy. And in particular, it's the collaboration. It's the volunteering work that's allowed me to have thought-provoking discussions with the other members of the Academy, and continue to learn and continue to assist others by putting out, whether it's these letters for comment or the different work under the cyber committee, and the papers that we put in as part of the toolkit that just help to further the education and knowledge of the general profession.
So it's becoming a bit of a theme, but it's definitely a two-way street. You're giving back, but you're also soaking in lots more information and new ways of looking at things.
Exactly.
Okay, Sam, well, in conclusion, I wonder, would you mind telling us what you do for fun?
So I'll answer this in a multifaceted way. I have a wonderful family and two little kids, a son and a daughter. On the weekends and afternoons, just spending a lot of time with them and getting outdoors and exploring, whether it's the nature of the various independent bookstores and farmers market with them. But personally, I'd say two areas that I really enjoy. One is putting together Lego and puzzles with my son and daughter, and building with them, whether it's creative or the latest unique little Star Wars kit that's come out. And then with Star Wars, a unique aspect is I play a game that's a card game. Think of it as akin to Magic the Gathering. It's called Star Wars CCG. actually do volunteering with them as part of it. It's a nonprofit that still runs the game. The game has been out of print since 2001, but it actually still lives on, and there are major tournaments over the course of the year, similar to the way that we would think about tennis and major tournaments and a world championship in there as well. And it's been a fun aspect of on the side hobby around strategy, but really camaraderie with me and my teammates as we play, both for enjoyment and the fun of one another, but then also the competitive nature as well.
That sounds fantastic. And I think that's a great place to end this podcast. Sam, thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome. It's great to be here.
Thank you for listening to Actuary Voices, the podcast from the American Academy of Actuaries. Today, I was talking to Sam Tashima, a member of the Academy's Committee on Cyber Risk and a recipient of a Rising Actuary Award from the American Academy of Actuaries. We are on the web at actuary.org, where you will find information about our annual meeting, Envision Tomorrow, which takes place in Washington, D.C. on November 13th and 14th, and where Sam will receive his award. You can also access the cyber risk toolkit we discussed at actuary.org/cyber toolkit. And please, don't forget to subscribe and rate this podcast on your preferred listening platform.